Adonis Creed, though initially standing on the shoulders of Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, has managed to make his own legacy in 3 films alone. He not only had a fight to embrace the name, but also fought to live up to it to prove that he wasn't a fluke. Despite some opinions out there stating that Adonis is no Rocky, I think that's an unfair judgment, and it also seems that they didn't watch the Creed films in the first place. It was never about him becoming a new Rocky or a new Apollo, he was just wanting to stand on his own. That's what makes his character unique. He is fighting battles that not many people would understand or have to fight. This is why Adonis Creed is a fighter. Let's talk about his struggles, who he was based on, his fighting style, and more. It should go without saying, but there are spoilers ahead for Creed 3, so if you haven't watched that yet, go watch that first and then come back. Let's recap on what we know about Adonis so far. Feel free to skip ahead to avoid the recap, but be warned, you may miss some important details later on in the video. Before Apollo Creed had his fight with Ivan Drago, he began an affair with a woman by the last name of Johnson. Adonis was born as a result and was raised by his mother until she passed, and he would grow up in group homes and spend time in and out of juvie. Adonis befriended Dame Anderson during this time, as both were in the Jeff, a home ran by Leon who verbally and physically abused the boys. Adonis would later be adopted by Marianne Creed, Apollo's widow, who would go on to raise him. When he was 16, he accompanied Dame to his fight for the Regional Golden Gloves Championship, and after Dame won, the two would stop at a convenience store to get snacks to celebrate Dame's victory. Adonis would meet Leon, who was leaving the liquor store, and would assault him in revenge for abusing him when he was younger. Though Leon's friends jumped in to help, the fight stopped when Dame pulled a gun. The police would arrive and arrest Dame, who had a prior record, while Adonis managed to get away. Though haunted by this, Adonis would do his best to try to forget and grew up into an angry young man, spending his time fighting in Tijuana while also quitting his job and moving to Philadelphia to become a fighter. Adonis would seek out Rocky Balboa, Apollo's former friend and rival, to convince him to train while also beginning a relationship with Bianca Taylor, his next-door neighbor. While Balboa refused at first, Adonis is taken under Rocky's wing and wins his first fight against Leo Sperino. After the fight, word gets out that Adonis is Apollo's illegitimate son, and this catches the eye of Ricky Conlan, undefeated light heavyweight champion, who is seeking a replacement opponent. Adonis agrees to the fight and to use the last name of Creed, though it is later revealed that Rocky has cancer. The two have a falling out after Rocky claims they aren't family, though reconcile later after Adonis is in jail for punching out Tone Trump, who called him Baby Creed. Rocky agrees to fight the cancer as long as Adonis trains to fight Conlan. Adonis goes the distance with Ricky and knocks him down for the first time in his career, gaining the respect of the champion and the crowd as he embraces the name of Creed. 3 years later, Adonis wins 6 more fights across different weight classes, moving up to heavyweight and defeats Danny Wheeler for the championship, winning back his Mustang, and proposes to Bianca. Ivan Drago, the man who killed Apollo Creed in the ring, joins Buddy Marcel to issue a challenge for Adonis to fight his son Victor. Rocky tries to talk Adonis out of the fight, but Adonis insists and moves out to Los Angeles to train under Little Duke for the fight. However, Adonis is no match for Drago and retains his championship via disqualification when Victor attacks Adonis while he took a knee. Rocky reconciles with Adonis at the request of Marianne once again after Adonis admitted that he was afraid of living up to the Creed name and wasn't sure if he could do what his father couldn't. His daughter Amara is born and, now more determined, agrees to a rematch with Victor in Russia while undergoing rigorous training methods with Rocky and Little Duke. Adonis retains the title against Victor after a grueling match, and it is implied that the two put the family rivalry to an end after the fight. Before retiring as undisputed champion, Adonis would fight Ricky Conlan in a rematch in South Africa and win, avenging his one professional loss. A few years later, Adonis becomes a promoter under Creed Athletics, operating out of the Delphi gym with Little Duke. Dame is finally released from prison and reconnects with Adonis. Feeling guilty about the past, Adonis agrees to get Dame trained as a professional who still wants to become world champion, and later invites him over for dinner after he becomes Felix Chavez, the current world champion's sparring partner. Dame insists on a title shot, which Adonis agrees to on the basis of it going to take some time. At Bianca's label party, Victor, the #1 contender who is set to fight Felix, is attacked and suffers fractures in his right arm and hand. Adonis presents the idea of Dame fighting Felix, similar to how Apollo gave Rocky a shot at the title. This ends up being a disaster as Dame uses dirty tactics to win the championship, and Marianne reveals that Dame set up the attack on Victor with a friend from prison. Marianne also reveals that she hid the letters Dame sent to Adonis so he can move on from his past. Adonis confronts Dame, who threatens that he's just getting started, and strikes Adonis. Marianne suffers another stroke and passes away, revealing that Adonis helped her forgive Apollo shortly before passing. Adonis confides in Bianca about his past, including Leon and how he got away, who reassures Adonis that he is a good man and needs to fight to keep what he built. Adonis issues a challenge to Dame for the championship and retrains himself in fighting condition despite being retired and having old injuries. The fight itself is evenly matched until the final round, as Adonis gets up from a knockdown and takes the fight to Dame, knocking him out to once again become world champion. Adonis and Dame make amends, taking accountability for their actions, and Adonis looks to the future ahead with his past finally behind him. Let's first talk about Adonis' struggles as a character throughout the Creed films. It goes without saying that Adonis was dealt a crappy hand out the gate. He never met his father and lacked a proper father figure for many years until he met Rocky, and his mother died at a young age, resulting in Adonis having a rough upbringing in group homes and in juvie. Some of this would carry on later into his adult life, as a deleted scene in Creed shows that Adonis had even more of a negative outlook toward Apollo when he realizes he's an illegitimate child. The fact that he had to fend for himself at such a young age, especially against Leon and others in the group homes, is what made him so angry at the world. However, despite not liking the fact that he's a Creed, he still tries to be like his father. He still studies the matches Apollo had and wants to fight with the last name Johnson. One can speculate that since boxing was something his father was famous for, it's the only thing he can connect to feel his father's spirit. This would also explain why he sought out Rocky. In the ring and from a personal standpoint, Rocky was the only one outside of Marianne who was against Adonis becoming a fighter who knew Apollo the best. The two develop a bond that helps them fill a void in their lives in a similar manner to Daniel and Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. Adonis has a father figure, or rather an uncle, that he sorely needed, while Rocky has another son in Adonis, as during this point in time, he hasn't talked to Robert in a few years. This would also explain why when Rocky tells Adonis, "We're not a real family," Adonis storms off as he's hurt by the comment. Rocky even regrets saying those words by saying, "What'd you do?" and "Why'd you say that?" When approached by Tommy Holiday for the chance to fight Conlon, Adonis doesn't take the offer at first because he wants to fight as Johnson to cement his own legacy. While talking with Bianca about this, she discovers Adonis is afraid of being a fraud, which is why he's reluctant to use the name. She replies by telling him that he is a Creed and that he should embrace and use the name. A deleted scene shows that either right before or not long after this scene takes place, Adonis asks for Marianne's blessing to use the name to take the fight, purely out of respect. Another aspect of the struggle of becoming a Creed is that Adonis is caught in the shadow, as Rocky puts it, because although he is mad that Apollo abandoned him, he needs to forgive his father because all it does is eat away at him. This gets to Adonis shedding tears because he knows Rocky's telling the truth. Adonis would go on to start accepting the name, as one of the bikers from Rocky's neighborhood admires that Adonis is Apollo's son, showing him some respect. In the Conlon fight, while going the distance as a newcomer, he wins the crowd over and proves that he's not a mistake. Conlon won the fight, but Creed won the night. Another struggle Adonis deals with in the first Creed film is that he struggles to get the basics down being properly trained as a fighter. Although he has raw talent, perhaps he still has that initial fear of expectations, as Rocky tries to calm him down and tells him to learn from the team so he can succeed as a fighter and build his own name. One of the bigger struggles, as mentioned before, is trying to get Rocky to fight cancer. While Rocky claims that everything I know moved on, Donnie still wants to be there for him not just as a student, but as another person in his life that he can lean on. This part of the film is amazing, as it symbolizes just how Apollo taught him to fight when he was training for the Clubber rematch and to move past Mickey's death. Adonis taught him how to keep fighting and pushing forward while training him as a boxer. Creed 2 has struggles that are different but same from the first Creed film. Now, Adonis must deal with the ghost from his father's past and live up to the legacy that his father left behind. When Buddy Marcel comes along to back the Drago's plan to challenge Adonis for the world title, this begins to get under Adonis' skin. Seeing it as a way to seek revenge for the death of his father, Adonis tries to convince Rocky to be in his corner to take the fight. Although Rocky brings up a good point of saying that it's not a good reason to fight, as even though he did it, it affected him permanently, Adonis misinterprets this as Rocky implying that he wouldn't win the fight. Donnie's pride gets the better of him and he decides to move back to Los Angeles to train for the fight, as he feels that he not only needs to defend his title, but also the Creed name. One thing I found interesting is while doing the HBO Sports promo, he responds to a question about worry with, "What would I be afraid of?" Although you can tell that he's trying to look confident, I've always seen this as his best attempt to convince himself and others that he's not afraid, but clearly is. As Rocky would say later on, Adonis' mind wasn't right, and he was lost without Rocky's advice, as he also wasn't prepared to take the punishment from Victor Drago. In contrast to being angry and unfocused in the first Creed while talking to Rocky, a more mature Donnie in Creed 2 admits what he was really fighting for. He was afraid that he couldn't do what his father couldn't do either and wanted to live up to the name of Creed. He didn't want to end up like his father did and wanted to rewrite history. In terms of emotions and what's going on in his head, Amara helps him through this battle and makes him realize that he needs to fight for himself. While she's upset when left alone with him, he takes her to Delphi and lets all of his emotions out on the heavy bag, calming Amara down, who no longer senses that he's upset. Rocky is able to help Adonis physically by taking Donnie out to the desert to be reborn, putting him through similar training methods that he used to defeat Ivan Drago. Adonis is eventually able to defeat Victor and visits his father's grave for the first time to make peace. The theme behind Creed 3, or rather the main struggle, is about Adonis having to face his past so he can move forward. It's interesting to note that the dialogue between Marianne's disapproval of Adonis becoming a boxer is very significant for this film, as she stated that he didn't need to move backwards or to become like his father, as she was the one who hid the letters from Dame so he could move forward. Adonis feels compelled to help Dame because of what happened in the past, so he pulls whatever strings he can to get Dame trained professionally. Though being fair and serious, when he says he can't just snap his fingers to make Dame a contender overnight, he does tell him that it will take time to help him move up the rankings. Because of Victor's injury, Adonis uses the same angle his father used to present the idea to Felix, as everyone loves an underdog. However, he realizes it was a mistake as Damien resorts to dirty tactics and injures Felix in the process. Despite the conflict of doing what's right and feeling guilty of what happened, Marianne makes him realize that Dame put himself in the title picture, which forces Adonis to confront his past. After the death of Marianne, Adonis finally confides in Bianca and explains that because of everything that happened, he felt responsible for leaving Dame behind and never reaching out, and that it was easier to forget than to remember what happened, hence his anger when he was younger and first met Bianca. He's also afraid that he's a fraud for everything that happened, and isn't sure if he's a good man because of not dealing with his past when he should have. Though Adonis goes on to defeat Dame, he also makes amends with his friend and talks to him after the match, taking responsibility for never reaching out, and how what happened was never on Dame or himself. Given all the struggles Adonis has, I think that's what makes him different. While Rocky came from nothing and rose all the way to the top, fell and got it back again in different aspects of his life, while also dealing with beasts from his past and in the basement, Adonis started at the top, but gave it all up to start from the bottom and work towards fighting. He never even wanted the title at first. He just wanted to be able to fight to deal with what he was going through. Adonis also had a unique challenge. He was in the shadow of both Rocky and Apollo, while also being the illegitimate son of the latter, which meant that he was always going to be put under a microscope for every move that he made. He still pushed forward and proved it to not only everyone but to himself. He was worthy of the Creed name. Who was Adonis Creed based on? While the obvious answer is that he was modeled after both Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed, there were two notable real-life inspirations. The first is southpaw boxer Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker, who won world titles in the lightweight, light welterweight, and light middleweight classes. Sweet Pea also won gold at the 1983 Pan American Games and the 1984 Olympics. In terms of defense, he's regarded as one of the greatest fighters, known for his counterpunching and being difficult to hit. Whitaker also holds the record for the longest unified lightweight championship reign in boxing history with 6 title defenses. The second notable influence would be Timothy Bradley, who was the reigning WBO welterweight champion at the time. Desert Storm's style was described by Michael B. Jordan as wild and kind of a brawler, and had notable fights against Manny Pacquiao, having fought him 3 times, Juan Manuel Marquez, and Jesse Vargas. Bradley retired in 2017 with a record of 33 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, and 1 no contest, while Sweet Pea had 40 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, and 1 no contest. It should be also noted that Bradley makes a cameo, so to speak, when some of his fights come up in the search results, as Adonis is about to watch Super Fight 2 in the first Creed film. While we're on the subject, let's also talk about Adonis' fighting style. Before meeting Rocky, Adonis learned what he could from Dame when they were teenagers, as it's implied they both learned from each other and were passionate about boxing, and also taught himself how to fight, often participating in underground fights. Despite his relative inexperience, he was able to knock down Kevin Greer, the number 6 contender, in 3 punches, and stood his own for a bit with Danny Wheeler, who was the number 2 light heavyweight contender at the time. It's also interesting to note that Adonis learned from his fight with Wheeler, as he used the same hook counter against Conlon to knock him down. Adonis is quick, bobs and weaves, and jabs from the outside like Apollo, and just like his father, also trash talks during his fights. However, a key difference is that due to Rocky's training, he can also take punishment, even using the same rope-a-dope method Rocky used against Clubber Lang. This also means that he can trade punches, as he's seen doing so with Conlon in their fight, and Rocky also teaches him how to attack the body. Donnie can use quick combinations and flurries to keep his opponent on the defense as well. In Creed 2, Adonis moves up weight classes to heavyweight and is noticeably quicker and more evasive for the most part. This is seen in both Wheeler and the first Drago fight, though he lacks the power to stand with Victor. Thanks to a similar discipline Rocky trained him in for his own match with Drago, Adonis is able to strengthen his neck, get stronger, and become faster, now being able to trade punches with Drago and conditioned to take even more punishment. In Creed 3, we see in his rematch with Conlon that he's able to study his opponents and analyze their weak points to capitalize on an opening, similar to how Dame is able to do the same thing in his match with Felix. When coming out of retirement to fight Dame, he's more defensive and fights from the outside similar to Apollo. He is also even better at counterpunching compared to the previous two films. Let's talk about the parallels that Adonis shares with Rocky. Both would fight in underground clubs in the early scenes of their first film, as both would also wear dark-colored trunks in this fight. While Rocky struggled to find work outside of boxing, Adonis gave up his office job to become a boxer. Both fighters would train in Philadelphia at the start of their career, and Adonis got his start in Philly like Rocky started over in California. Adonis and Rocky would begin their gym training at Mighty Mick's gym. Rocky would watch a promo of Apollo Creed at the bar, while Adonis would watch a promo on Ricky Conlon, a nice touch as both fighters would go on to fight the respective champion at the end of the movie. Adonis was fortunate to meet his love interest Bianca as she was his neighbor, while Adrian worked near the gym Rocky trained at. Like Rocky, Adonis was ignored by the head trainer at Mick's gym. The two fighters are noted for training in the old school methods of chasing a chicken. Creed has a nice throwback to the early Rocky films, as Adonis runs through Philadelphia like Rocky did while wearing a gray sweatsuit. Rocky would grow close to Mickey and consider him a father figure, and then became a father figure years later to Adonis. Adonis and Rocky would go on first dates respectively in their first films, with Rocky and Adrian going to the ice rink while Adonis and Bianca would go for dinner to eat some cheesesteaks. In a nice parallel, Adonis visits Bianca's apartment for the first time, while Adrian would be inside Rocky's apartment for the first time. During training, Rocky is advised to stay away from Adrian because women weaken legs, and he later passes this advice on to Adonis when he moves in. Similar to how Rocky learned Apollo's fighting style in Rocky 3, Adonis would learn how to fight like a Philadelphia fighter from Rocky and his team in the first Creed movie. Though the fight against Sparino isn't necessarily a major fight, it could be considered one against a notable contender, as both Adonis and Rocky would wear white trunks in their first major fights. Like Rocky, Adonis is offered to fight the world champion of his division, knocks down the champion for the first time in their career, and goes the distance with them. Bianca motivates Donnie to move past the fear of being a false Creed, similar to how Adrian would encourage Rocky to move past his fears in Rocky 3. Speaking of that film, Rocky had Mickey who was starting to get sick and have chest pain, akin to Adonis helping Rocky fight through his cancer. In London, Adonis endures a few cheap shots from Ricky like Rocky did from Apollo. Adonis is booed heavily in the United Kingdom in a similar manner to how Rocky was booed in Russia before fighting Drago. Like Rocky, Adonis would cut open his opponent's eye and win over the crowd. In his fight with Apollo, Rocky would end up with a closed eye, the same injury Adonis has near the end of the fight. In their respective films, both won the world title from an opponent they faced before. Adonis would propose to Bianca and the two would end up having a Mara, similar to how Rocky would propose and marry Adrian, and Rocky Jr. was born not long after. Adonis has a winning streak in Creed 2, similar to Rocky having a hot streak after winning the title in Rocky 3. It should be noted that Adonis fought a champion in Las Vegas, just like Rocky fought Mason Dixon 12 years earlier, though in a non-title match. Mickey discouraged Rocky from fighting Clubber because he was fighting a tougher opponent, and Rocky tried to persuade Adonis to not fight Victor for the same reasons. Buddy Marcel hounds Adonis throughout the film to fight Drago, similar to George Washington Duke constantly finding an angle to get Rocky or Tommy in the ring. Rocky and Adrian bought a new house together, and Adonis would follow suit by moving out to LA to buy his house. In Rocky's second fight with Apollo, he would try his best to protect his bad eye, which was targeted by Apollo. Adonis goes through the same struggle in his first fight with Victor. The fight between Victor and Adonis is for the title in New York City, similar to Rocky facing Clubber for the title in the rematch. Adonis eventually gets out of his funk to prepare for a rematch, just like Rocky would in Rocky 2 and Rocky 3. It should be noted that both fathers took up training again not long after their child is born. Rocky trained in the cold for his fight with Ivan Drago, and Adonis trains out in the desert to prepare for his rematch with Victor. Adonis also has a shot that's similar to Rocky's jogging and sprinting in Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. Rocky is noticeably quicker in his rematch with Clubber Lang, avoiding punches and being able to deal damage, and Adonis follows suit as he's also quicker and able to trade punches with Victor Drago. Adonis pulls out a page of Rocky's playbook and traps Victor Drago in the corner. In Creed 3, Adonis initially retires as champion, something that Rocky attempted to do in Rocky 3. Adonis also defeats previously undefeated fighters throughout the franchise. Victor Drago, if you're going by his logic claiming that his disqualification wasn't a loss, Ricky Conlon, and Dame Anderson. Rocky did this as well to Apollo Creed, Clubber Lang, and Ivan Drago. Despite being reluctant to initially do so, Adonis gives Dame a chance and gets him trained, similar to Rocky changing his mind about taking Tommy Gunn under his wing. Rocky Jr. would get into a fight with Chicky at school and learn how to defend himself. Amara would do the same, though her father would directly teach her how to defend herself. Adonis would be ringside for his friend and champion Felix Chavez and would check on him after he's injured in a fight, calling back to Rocky doing the same for Apollo in Rocky IV. Though getting past his fears, Rocky initially refused to open up until after Mick's funeral, just like Adonis finally opening up after Marianne's funeral. The two fighters also lose a parental figure in the third film of the franchise, respectively. Little Duke takes a page out of his father's book and trains Adonis' flaws into weaknesses, just like Rocky focusing on his raw power. Adonis would become a two-time world heavyweight champion like his mentor Rocky and would score a final round knockout, like Rocky scoring a final round knockout against Apollo for the title. Let's also talk about the parallels Adonis shares with his father Apollo. Both presumably grew up in California. Adonis inherits his father's habit of fighting and hot-headed attitude. Though not a parallel, it's a nice touch that Adonis fights in the projector to both Rocky and Apollo's fight, mirroring some of the same punches they both throw. Like his father, Adonis trained in California and was undefeated for a time. In the climactic fight for the first films they appeared in, both Creeds fight in the USA trunks. Apollo would notably get heated in press conferences with Rocky and Ivan, and Adonis would continue this tradition by getting heated with Ricky Conlon. Both Creeds would practice their punches before a championship fight, and also wear a white robe to at least one of their championship matches. Adonis and Apollo would be knocked down in the first round of the climactic fight they were in, both in Rocky I and Creed I. Apollo would attempt to trade punches, like Adonis trading punches with Ricky. Adonis would follow in his father's footsteps and become a world heavyweight champion. He would also challenge the Drago because of the hype, similar to what Apollo did in 1985. Adonis utters two things his father once said: "I ain't got a choice, and I'm dangerous." His father tried the same tactics to convince Rocky to be in his corner for the Drago fight, though Rocky declines the first time when Adonis asked him to train him for the fight with Drago. Adonis instead trains under Little Duke, as Duke's father taught Apollo everything he knew. History repeats itself as Adonis gets physical with Victor before a fight, as their fathers did the same in the 80s. For the fight itself, Adonis makes a grand entrance like his father did in Vegas. He wears the USA trunks again, though with red gloves like Apollo did in his fight against Rocky. Both Creeds lose against a Drago and have a bad first round, though Adonis would do what his father couldn't, beat a Drago. Both refuse to have the fight stop. Adonis also suffers broken ribs, an injury Apollo sustained against Rocky. Like his father did after his fight with Rocky, he would end up in a hospital, and Rocky visited both Creeds during their stay. After the Victor Drago fight, Adonis deals with bad press in a similar manner how Apollo did after his first fight with Rocky. Adonis helps Rocky fight in his battle with Robert Jr., similar to how Apollo helped Rocky fight in Rocky III. In Creed III, Adonis now has a mansion out in Los Angeles like his father did. He also follows in his father's footsteps again. It becomes both a promoter and a trainer, working with Little Duke. Similar to Apollo, Adonis offers to train a friend who becomes a rival, in contrast to Apollo training a rival who becomes a friend. When Victor is injured, Adonis gives the same idea of a novelty fight like his father did with Rocky. There's a similar locker room talk before Dame's fight with Felix, like Apollo did with Rocky in Rocky III. Adonis also wears a suit ringside, similar to his father observing the Balboa Lang fight. Lastly, being told to let it go was the same advice his father was told. Post-edit, that would have been the lastly if I hadn't found two more parallels while editing footage. When Rocky initially declines Pete Sparino's challenge, Adonis asks, "Rock, what are we training for?" This reminds me of Apollo's dialogue in Rocky IV, where he tells Rocky, "And without some challenge, the warrior might as well be dead, stallion." I also noticed that right after Adonis knocks down Kevin Greer, he's wearing Rocky Marciano's cufflink, implying that he inherited this from Apollo. Here are my final thoughts on Adonis Creed and what we can expect from him in the future. I think a lot of fans unjustly give Adonis a lot of flack because they misunderstand his character. Adonis isn't meant to be the new Rocky. He's meant to be his own character, and although he has similarities to both Rocky and Apollo, he has a unique struggle that they never faced, being in the shadows of someone else and proving that he's worthy of the name. It's not just Apollo's shadow he had to fight out of, it was Rocky's too. It's no different than Miguel Diaz being a what if Daniel LaRusso joined Cobra Kai instead of Miyagi-Do initially, or Robbie Keane being Johnny Lawrence if he joined Miyagi-Do. While I do understand why some fans won't support the franchise because of what Irwin Winkler did to Sylvester Stallone, that has nothing to do with Michael B. Jordan. If you're a Rocky and Creed fan, support Creed 3 anyway. It's a great film and deserves a watch. Stallone has expressed interest in Creed 4, and I hope the Winklers do the right thing and give Stallone the rights back. Until then, we can only wait and see. A special thanks to IllRev for letting me use his music in this video. You can find his music here on SoundCloud. Let me know what you guys think. What do you like about Adonis Creed? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, and comment, as these all help my channel grow. Be sure to check out and subscribe to my gaming channel. I'm trying to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers, and helping this channel also helps me support my main channel. Keep up with me on my socials via Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for watching, stay beautiful, stay awesome, and we'll catch you around next time.